Hi Rahul, welcome to the interview. How are you doing today?
Hello, sir. I am doing well. Thanks for having me.
Let's get started. Can you briefly walk me through your overall experience and how Power BI fits into your journey?
Absolutely. I have 4 years of experience in data analytics, and for the last 3 years, I've been working extensively with Power BI. Initially, I worked on Excel based reporting, but transitioned into Power BI as clients began demanding more interactive and real time dashboards. I've worked across banking and healthcare domains, building data models, crafting DAX measures, transforming data in Power Query, and deploying both interactive dashboards and paginated reports.
Let's talk data modeling. How do you decide between using a star schema and a snowflake schema?
I generally prefer a star schema as it's more efficient in Power BI. It simplifies relationships, improves performance, and works better with DAX. However, if there's a need to normalize data or reduce redundancy, I may use Snowflake elements carefully, but I typically denormalize using Power Query before loading to Power BI, especially to avoid complex joins during report refreshes.
You mentioned about DAX. Can you explain the difference between calculate and filter? And maybe give a use case where you had to use both? Plus, write a DAX for calculate that you have used.
Sure, calculate is used to modify the filter context of an expression, while filter returns a table. In one of my healthcare report, I had to calculate the number of patients discharged in the current month with specific conditions. I used calculate function for that. The DAX I wrote for that was this was the DAX. Filter returns a filtered table, and calculate adjust the context to apply that filter to the count.
Nice. Let's move to visualizations. How have you used bookmarks in your Power BI reports?
I use bookmarks extensively in a banking KPI dashboard. The client wanted to switch views based on business units like retail, corporate, and SME banking. Instead of cluttering the dashboard, I created different bookmarks that toggled visibility of visuals for each unit. I also added buttons and linked them with bookmarks to make the navigation seamless. It gave the report an app like experience.
Did you face any limitations or challenges while working with bookmarks?
Yes, mainly maintaining sync between visuals. Sometimes, if users interacted with a slicer and switched bookmarks, filters would reset. So I used the data option selectively while saving bookmarks to retain user selections where needed. Also, explaining to business users how to use the toggle buttons was crucial.
Alright, let's move to Power Query. Can you describe a complex data transformation scenario you handled?
Definitely. In a healthcare project, I had to clean up insurance claim files coming from different systems. They had inconsistent headers, mixed data types, and embedded summary rows. Using Power Query, I promoted headers dynamically, removed summary rows using pattern based filters, converted claim amount columns to fixed decimal numbers, used group by to calculate average processing time by hospital, and finally merge them with the master claims reference table. I also created a custom column using if and then logics to flag high risk claims.
Good. What's your experience with paginated reports?
I've used Power BI Report Builder to design paginated reports, mostly in the banking domain. For example, generating monthly statements for thousands of customers. I used parameters for customer ID, date range, and account type. The layout needed to be printable, so I paid attention to margins, grouping, and page breaks. These reports were deployed to Power BI service and scheduled to be emailed as PDFs.
Did you implement any security, like row level security?
Yes, especially in banking dashboards. We use dynamic RLS, where I created a user access table mapping email addresses to branch codes. Using DAX with user principal name and filtering the data model ensured that each user only saw their own branch's data. This worked well with Power BI service when reports were published and shared with role based access.
Let me give you a scenario. Suppose your report is taking too long to load. How would you troubleshoot performance?
First, I would open DAX Studio and run Performance Analyzer to inspect heavy queries. I would check if there are any complex measures using filter, all, or nested calculate. I would also look at the model size and see if any large text columns can be removed or summarized. Then I would optimize relationships and check visuals. Cards with heavy DAX can slow things down. Lastly, I would simplify visuals and avoid using too many slicers or unfiltered tables.
Okay. What would you do in a scenario where a client asks for a Power BI dashboard, but the source data refreshes every 2 hours? How would you handle this?
I would first confirm with the client if near real time data is a strict requirement. If yes, I'd set the dataset to refresh via gateway every 2 hours using scheduled refresh in Power BI service. If the data is from SQL Server, I could explore directory or a hybrid model using composite models, where high frequency tables use directory and static ones use import mode. I'd also alert stakeholders about refresh completion via Power Automate if needed.
Good inputs. How do you collaborate with teams, say data engineers or stakeholders, on Power BI projects?
I usually start with requirement gathering sessions with stakeholders, document KPIs, and confirm logic. I coordinate with data engineers to get clean views or stored procedures. During development, I share mock reports using test data. We use DevOps or SharePoint to version PBIX files. Once approved, I publish to Power BI Workspace, set permissions, and schedule refreshes. I also conduct demo sessions and build a brief user guide for business users.
Nice. And how do you keep learning Power BI?
I explore new features in the monthly updates, follow Guy in a Cube, SQLBI, and attend community events. I often try to replicate new features like field parameters or on object interactions in dummy projects. This helps me stay hands on and updated.
Rahul, this was a great discussion. You have explained everything clearly and demonstrated strong hands on experience. We will connect soon with the next steps.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity.